The Lord of the Rings. Book 1. Chapter 4. A Shortcut to Mushrooms. Within the morning Frodo woke refreshed. He become mendacity in a bower made. With the aid of a residing tree with branches laced and drooping to the floor, his bed become of fern and grass, deep and soft and unusually fragrant. They solar became shining through the uttering leaves, which have been none the less green. Upon the tree. He jumped up and went out. Sam turned into sitting on the grass near the edge of the timber. Pippin was standing reading the sky and climate. There has been no sign of the elves. They have left us fruit and drink, and bread, stated Pippin. Come and feature your breakfast. The bread tastes nearly as suitable as it did last night time. I did no longer want to depart you any, however Sam insisted. Frodo sat down beside Sam and started out to consume. What's the plan for these days? Requested Pippin. To walk to Buckleberry as quickly as viable, answered Frodo, and gave his interest to the meals. Do you suspect we will see anything of those riders? Requested Pippin cheerfully. Under the morning solar the possibility of seeing a whole troop of them did now not appear very alarming to him. Sure, likely, said Frodo, no longer liking the reminder. But I'm hoping to get throughout the river without their seeing us. Did you end out something approximately them from J.R.R? No longer a good deal best suggestions and riddles, said Frodo evasively. Did you ask approximately the sniff? We didn't talk it, said Frodo together with his mouth full. You must have. I'm certain it's miles very critical. In that case I'm positive J.R.R might have refused to explain it, said Frodo sharply. And now leave me in peace for a piece. I don't want to answer a string of questions at the same time as I am ingesting. I want to think. Appropriate heavens, stated Pippin. At breakfast he walked away closer to the threshold of the green. From Frodo's mind the intense morning treacherously vibrant, he concept had no longer banished the fear of pursuit, and he pondered the words of J.R.R. The merry voice of Pippin came to him. He was strolling on the green turf and making a song. No, I could not, he stated to himself. It's far one element to take my younger friends taking walks over the Shire with me, till we're hungry and weary, and meals and bed are sweet. To take them into exile, where hunger and weariness may additionally don't have any therapy, is pretty another. Even supposing they're inclined to return. The inheritance is mine by myself. I don't suppose I ought even to take Sam. He checked out Sam Gamgee, and observed that Sam changed into looking him nicely. Sam, he said. What approximately it I'm leaving the Shire as soon as ever I will. In reality I've made up my mind no longer even to attend an afternoon at Crick Hollow, if it may be helped. Very good, sir. You still mean to include me? I do. It is going to be very dangerous, Sam. It's far already dangerous. Most probably neither people will come back. In case you don't come lower back, sir, then I shan't. That's certain, stated Sam. Don't you leave him, they stated to me. Depart him. I said. I never mean to. I'm going with him, if he climbs to the moon, and if any of those black riders attempt to forestall him, they'll have Sam Gamgee to reckon with, I said. They laughed. Who are they, and what are you talking approximately? The elves, sir. We had a few speak last night, and they seemed to know you had been going away, so I didn't see the use of denying it. Splendid people, elves, sir. Excellent. They're said Frodo. "Do you like them nevertheless, now you have had a better view?" "They appear a chunk above my likes and dislikes, so to speak," responded Sam slowly. "It don't appear to rely what I reflect on consideration on them. They are quite extraordinary from what I anticipated, so old and young, and so gay and unhappy, because it were." Frodo checked out Sam instead, startled, one too awaiting to see some outward signal of the ordinary exchange that seemed to have come over him. It did not sound just like the voice of the antique Sam Gamgee that he concept. He knew. However, it looked like the vintage Sam Gamgee sitting there, except that his face was surprisingly thoughtful. "Do you sense any want to depart the Shire now that your wish to peer them has come genuine already?" he requested. "Yes, sir. I don't understand how to say it, however after closing night I experience exceptional. I seem to see ahead, in a sort of manner. I realize we're going to take a very long street, into darkness, but I realize I'm able to flip again. It isn't to see elves now, nor dragons, nor mountains, that I need. I don't rightly understand what I need, however I've something to do before the stop, and it lies ahead, now not within the Shire. I have to see it via, sir, in case you understand me. I don't altogether, but I take into account that Gandalf chose me a appropriate associate. I'm content we can pass together." Frodo nished his breakfast in silence. Then standing up he seemed over the land ahead, and called to Pippin. "All ready to start," he stated as Pippin ran up. "We should be getting off immediately. We slept overdue, and there are an amazing many miles to go." "You slept late, you imply," stated Pippin. "I used to be up long before, and we are simplest ready so that you can nish in jesting and wondering. I have nished both now. And I'm going to make for Bucklebury Ferry as quick as possible. I am no longer going out of the way, return to the road we left final night time. I'm going to reduce immediately throughout country. From right here." "You then are going to why?" said Pippin. "You 1t cut instantly on foot everywhere on this US. We are able to cut straighter than the street besides," spoke back Frodo. "The ferry is east from Woodhall, but the difficult avenue curves away to the left. You can see a bend of it away north over there. It is going round the north end of the Marish so that you can strike the causeway from the bridge above Stock. However, this is miles out of the way. We could store a quarter of the distance if we made a line for the ferry from wherein we stand." "Quick cuts make long delays," argued Pippin. "The Usava is difficult spherical here, and there are loose and all types of difficulties down in the Marish. I recognize the land in these elements. And in case you are demanding about Black Riders, I can't see that it is any worse assembly them on a road than in a timber or a eld. It's far less smooth to nd people inside the woods and elds," responded Frodo. "And if you are supposed to be on the street, there is a few hazard that you will be looked for on the street and not off it." "All right," said Pippin. "I will observe you into each bog and ditch, but it is difficult. I had counted on passing the Golden Perch at inventory earlier than sundown. The satisfactory beer within the East Farthing, or was once, it is a long time in view that I tasted it." "That settles it," said Frodo. "Brief cuts make delays, but resorts make longer ones at all expenses. We should maintain you far from the Golden Perch. We want to get to Bucklebury before darkish. What do you say, Sam?" "I can go together with you, Mr. Frodo," said Sam in spite of personal misgivings and a deep regret for the great beer in the East Farthing. Then if we're going to toil through bathroom and briar, permit us go now, stated Pippin. It turned into already almost as warm as it were the day earlier then, however. Clouds had been starting to come up from the west. It regarded probable to turn to rain. The hobbits scrambled down a steep green bank and plunged into the thick bushes below. Their course were chosen to leave Woodhall to their left, and to cut slanting via the woods that clustered along the eastern aspect of the hills, until they reached the It's beyond. Then they may make immediately for the ferry over U.S. That changed into open, except for some ditches and fences. Frodo reckoned that they had 18 miles to go in a instantly line. He soon found that the thicket changed into nearer and extra tangled than it had regarded. There have been no paths within the undergrowth, and that they did now not get on very rapid. When they had struggled to the bottom of the bank, they located a circulate running down from the hills at the back of in a deeply dug bed with steep slippery aspects overhung with brambles. Maximum inconveniently it cut across the line they had chosen. They could not jump over it, nor indeed get across it at all without getting moist, scratched, and muddy. They halted, questioning what to do. First test, stated Pippin, smiling grimly. Sam Gamgee looked returned. Through a gap inside the bushes he stuck a glimpse of the pinnacle of the inexperienced bank from which they had climbed down. Look, he said, clutching Frodo via the arm. All of them regarded, and on the edge excessive above them they noticed in opposition to the sky a horse standing. Beside it stooped a black Gur. They at once gave up any concept of going again. Frodo led the manner, and plunged quick into the thick bushes beside the move. "Whew," he said to Pippin. "We were both right, the short reduce has gone crooked already, but we got underneath Cowl's simplest just in time." "You've got sharp ears, Sam, are you able to hear anything coming?" They stood nonetheless, nearly maintaining their breath as they listened, but there was no sound of pursuit. "I don't fancy he could strive bringing his horse down that bank," said Sam. "But I bet he knows we came down it. We had higher be taking place." Occurring changed into not altogether clean. They'd packs to hold, and the timber and brambles were reluctant to allow them to through. They were cut off from the wind by using the ridge at the back of, and the air changed into still and stuffy. Once they compelled their way at last into greater open floor, they have been warm and tired and very scratched, and that they had been also no longer sure of the direction wherein they have been going. The banks of the stream sank, as it reached the ranges and became broader and shallower, wandering off toward the Marish and the river. "Why, that is the Stock Brook," stated Pippin. "If we are going to attempt and get returned onto our direction, we should pass right away and endure right." They waded the stream, and moved quickly over a huge open space, rush-grown and treeless, on the similarly side. Beyond that they came again to a belt of trees, tall all right, for the most element, with here and there an elm tree or an ash. The ground was fairly level, and there was little undergrowth, however the trees had been too close for them to peer. Some distance ahead, the leaves blew upwards in sudden gusts of wind, and spots of rain started out to fall from the overcast sky. Then the wind died away and the rain came streaming down. They trudged alongside as speedy as they might, over patches of grass, and via thick drifts of antique leaves, and all about them the rain pattered and trickled. They did now not communicate, however stored glancing returned, and backward and forward. After half of an hour Pippin stated, "I'm hoping we've got no longer became to a great deal toward the south, and aren't strolling longwise through this timber. It isn't always a completely broad belt. I should have stated no extra than a mile on the widest, and we must have been through it via now. It's miles no accurate, are beginning to move in zigzags," stated Frodo. "That one men topics let us keep on as we are going. I'm not certain that I need to come out into the open yet." They went on for perhaps every other couple of miles. Then the Sunday gleamed out of ragged clouds once more and the rain lessened. It changed into now beyond midday, and they felt it turned into excessive time for lunch. They halted under an elm tree. Its leaves, although speedy turning yellow, had been nonetheless thick, and the ground at its foot become fairly dry and sheltered. When they got here to make their meal, they observed that the elves had led their bottles with a clean drink, light golden in color. It had the heady scent of a honey fabricated from many hours, and was wonderfully clean. Very soon they were guffawing, and snapping their engers at rain, and at black riders. The previous few miles, they felt, might quickly be at the back of them. Frodo propped his again in opposition to the tree trunk, and closed his eyes. Sam and Pippin sat near, and that they started to hum, and then to sing softly. "Ho! Ho! Ho! To the bottle I am going, to heal my heart and drown my woe. Rain may additionally fall and wind may blow, and plenty of miles be nonetheless to head, but beneath a tall tree I'm able to lie, and permit the clouds pass cruising with the aid of ho! Ho! Ho!" They started again louder. They stopped brief all at once. Frodo sprang to his toes. A protracted drawn wail came down the wind, just like the cry of some evil and lonely creature. It rose and fell, and ended on a high piercing notice. Whilst they sat and stood, as though abruptly frozen, it became replied by means of some other cry, fainter and in addition off, but no less chilling to the blood. There has been then a silence, broken handiest through the sound of the wind inside the leaves. "And what do you think that become?" Pippin asked at final, seeking to communicate lightly, but quavering a touch. "If it become a bird, it turned into one which I by no means heard in the Shire before." "It was now not bird or beast," stated Frodo. "It changed into a name, or a sign. There had been phrases in that cry, although I could not seize them. However, no hobbit has this type of voice." No more was stated approximately it. They were all taking into consideration the riders, but no person mentioned them. They have been now reluctant both to stay or go on. However, eventually they were given to get across the open U.S.A. to the ferry, and it turned into high quality to head sooner and in daylight hours. In a few moments they'd shouldered their packs once more and had been off. Earlier than long the wooden came to a unexpected quit. Wide grasslands stretched earlier than them. They now saw that they had, in fact, grew to become too much to the south. Away over the It's they could glimpse the low hill of Buckleberry across the river, but it changed into now to their left. Creeping carefully out from the edge of the trees, they activate throughout the open as quickly as they could. At RST they felt afraid, far from the safe haven of the wooden. A ways returned behind them stood the high place where that they had breakfasted. Frodo half of predicted to see the small remote gur of a horseman on the ridge dark against the sky, but there has been no signal of one. The solar escaping from the breaking clouds, because it sank towards the hills they had left, turned into now shining brightly once more. Their worry left them, though. They nevertheless felt uneasy. But the land became step by step extra tame and properly ordered. Quickly they got here into nicely tended elds and meadows. There have been hedges and gates and dikes for drainage. The entirety appeared quiet and non-violent, simply an regular corner of the Shire. Their spirits rose with every step. The road of the river grew nearer, and the black riders started to appear to be phantoms of the woods now left. A long way behind, they surpassed alongside the edge of a massive turnip eld, and got here to a stout gate. Beyond it a rutted lane ran between low nicely laid hedges. In the direction of clump of bushes. Pippin stopped. "I recognize those elds and this gate," he said. "This is Bamfurlong, antique Farmer Maggot's land. That's his farm away there in the timber." "One problem after every other," said Frodo, searching nearly as an awful lot alarmed as if Pippin had declared the lane changed into the slot main to a dragon's den. The others looked at him in wonder. "What's wrong with Vintage Maggot?" requested Pippin. "He's an excellent pal to all of the brandybucks. Of path he's an apprehension to trespassers, and keeps ferocious dogs, but in any case, folk down here are near the border and must be greater on their guard." "I know," stated Frodo. "But all the equal," he added with a shamefaced chortle, "I'm terried of him and his dogs. I have averted his farm for years and years. He stuck me several instances trespassing after mushrooms, while I was a youngster at Brandy Hall. On the ultimate occasion he beat me, after which took me and showed me to his puppies. See, lads," he said, "subsequent time this young varmint sets foot on my land, you may eat him. Now see him off. They chased me all of the way to the ferry. I have in no way got over the fright, even though I dare say the beasts knew their business and could no longer clearly have touched me." Pippin laughed. "Properly, it's time you made it up, particularly in case you are coming lower back to stay in Buckland. Antique Maggot is definitely a stout fellow. If you leave his mushrooms alone, permit us get into the lane, after which we shan't be trespassing. If we meet him, I'll do the speak me. He's a friend of Mary's, and that I used to return right here with him, an amazing deal at one time." They went along the lane, till they noticed the thatched roofs of a massive residence and farm buildings peeping out among the timber ahead. The Maggots, and the Pudafoots of stock, and maximum of the population of the Marish, were house dwellers, and this farm became stoutly built of brick and had a high wall all round it. There was a wide wood gate opening out of the wall into the lane. Unexpectedly, as they drew nearer, a terrific baying and barking broke out, and a noisy voice became heard shouting, "Grip! Fang! Wolf! Come on, lads!" Frodo and Sam stopped dead, however Pippin walked on some paces. The gate opened and 3 large dogs got here pelting out into the lane, and dashed towards the guests, barking earnestly. They took no note of Pippin, but Sam shrank in opposition to the wall, even as 2 wolfish-looking dogs sniffed at him suspiciously, and snarled if he moved. The largest and most ferocious of the 3 halted in front of Frodo, bristling and growling. Through the gate there now regarded a vast thick-set hobbit, with a round crimson face. "Hello! Hello! And who may additionally you be, and what may you be wanting?" he asked. "Accurate afternoon, Mr. Maggot," stated Pippin. The farmer checked out him closely. "Nicely, if it isn't," grasped Pippin. "Mr. Peregrine Took, I have to say," he cried, converting from a scowl to a grin. "It's a long term on the grounds that I noticed you spherical here. It's lucky for you that I know you. I was simply going out to set my dogs on any strangers. There are some funny things happening today. Of path, we do get queer people wandering in those elements at instances. Too close to the river, he stated, shaking his head. But this fellow became the maximum outlandish I've ever set eyes on. He received go my land without. Go away a second time, no longer if I will forestall it. What fellow do you suggest, requested Pippin. Then you haven visible him, said the farmer. He went up the lane toward the causeway now not an extended while again. He become a funny client and asking humorous questions. But perhaps you'll come along. Interior, and we'll bypass the information greater cozy. I've a drop of good ale on faucet, if you and your buddies are willing, Mr. Took. It regarded simple that the farmer could inform them more, if allowed to do it in his own time and fashion, so they all normal the invitation. What approximately the puppies, asked Frodo anxiously. The farmer laughed. They gain harm you now not except I inform em to right here, grip. Fang. Heel. He cried. Heel, wolf. To the relaxation of Frodo and Sam, the puppies walked away and allow them to pass free. Pippin delivered the opposite to the farmer. Mr. Frodo Baggins, he stated. You may no longer do not forget him, however he used to live at Brandy Corridor. On the call Baggins the farmer started out, and gave Frodo a sharp look. For a second Frodo thought that the reminiscence of stolen mushrooms had been aroused, and that the puppies would be told to see him off. But Farmer Maggot took him with the aid of the arm. Nicely, if that isn't queerer than ever, he exclaimed. Mr. Baggins, is it come inner? We should have a talk. They went into the farmer's kitchen, and sat by means of the wide area. Mrs. Maggot introduced out beer in a big jug, and LED 4 massive mugs. It changed into an amazing brew, and Pippin determined himself more than compensated for missing the golden perch. Sam sipped his beer suspiciously. He had a natural distrust of the inhabitants of other elements of the Shire, and also he became no longer disposed to be quick friends with absolutely everyone who had crushed his grasp, however long ago. After a few feedback approximately the weather and the rural potentialities which had been no worse than usual, Farmer Maggot put down his mug and looked at them all in flip. Now, Mr. Peregrine, he said, in which would possibly you be coming from, and in which might you be going to had been you coming to go to me for, if so, you had gone past my gate without my seeing you? Nicely, no, spoke back Pippin. To inform you the fact, considering you have guessed it, we got into the lane from the opposite quit, we had come over your elds however that turned into pretty by way of accident. We lost our way in the woods, again near Woodhall, trying to take a brief cut to the ferry. In case you were in a hurry, the street could have served you higher, stated the farmer. But I wasn't stressful approximately that you've got leave to walk over my land, if you have a thoughts, Mr. Peregrine, and you, Mr. Baggins, though I dare say you continue to like mushrooms. He laughed. Ah sure, I recognized the call. I keep in mind the time while young. Frodo Baggins turned into one of the worst young rascals of Buckland. But it wasn't mushrooms I was thinking of. I had just heard the name Baggins earlier than you grew to become up. What do you watched that humorous patron? Asked me. They waited anxiously for him to go on. Well, the farmer persevered, coming near his factor with sluggish delight he got here riding on a massive black horse in on the gate, which happened to be open, and proper as much as my door. All black he turned into himself, too, and cloaked and hooded up, as though he did not want to be recognized. Now what inside the Shire can he want, I thought to myself. We don't see a number of the massive folks over the border, and anyway I had never heard of any like this black fellow. Properly day to you, I says, going out to him. This lane don't lead everywhere, and any place you will be going, your quickest manner will be again to the street. I didn't like the looks of him, and whilst Grip got here out, he took one sniff and let out a yelp as if he have been stung. He placed down his tail and bolted off howling. The black fellow sat quite still. I come from yonder, he stated, slow and stiff-like, pointing lower back west, over my elds, if you please. Have you ever visible Baggins, he requested in a queer voice, and bent down towards me. I couldn't see any face, for his hood fell down so low, and that I felt a form of shiver down my again. However, I did not see why he have to come driving over my land so bold. Be off, I said. There are no Bagginses here. You're inside the incorrect a part of the Shire. You had higher move back west to Hobbiton. However, you may move with the aid of Avenue this time. Baggins has left, he spoke back in a whisper. He's coming. He isn't a ways away. I want to empty him. If he passes, will you inform me? I will come lower back with gold. No, you gain tea, I said. You'll pass back in which you belong, double brief. I provide you with 1 minute earlier than I name all my puppies. He gave a type of hiss it would were giggling, and it not. Then he spurred his outstanding horse proper at me, and I jumped out of the way most effective simply in time. I referred to as the puppies, however he swung off, and rode through the gate and up the lane in the direction of the causeway like a bolt of thunder. What do you watched of that? Frodo sat for a second searching at the but his most effective concept was how on the planet could they reach the ferry. I don't recognize what to assume, he said at last. Then I'll tell you what to think, stated Maggot. You must by no means have long gone blending yourself up with Hobbiton folks, Mr. Frodo folk are queer up there. Sam stirred in his chair, and checked out the farmer with an unfriendly eye. But you have been usually a reckless lad. Once I heard you had left the brandy bucks and long gone off to that old Mr. Bilbo, I said, which you had been going to end problem. Mark my words, this all comes of these peculiar doings of Mr. Bilbo's. His cash became were given in some odd style and overseas elements, they are saying. Perhaps there is some that need to recognize what has turned out to be of the gold and jewels that he buried in the hill of Hobbiton, as I hear. Frodo said nothing. The sensible guesses of the farmer have been as an alternative. Disconcerting. Nicely, Mr. Frodo, Maggot went on, I am satisfied which you've had the feel to come again to Buckland. My recommendation is, stay there. And don't get combined up with these outlandish folk. You'll have buddies in these elements. If any of these black fellows come when you again, I'll deal with them. I'll say you're useless, or have left the Shire, or anything you want. And that is probably proper enough, for as like as not it's far vintage. Mr. Bilbo they need information of. Perhaps you're proper, stated Frodo, averting the farmer's eye and gazing the Maggot looked at him thoughtfully. Well, I see you've got ideas of your personal, he said. It is as plain as my nose that no accident delivered you and that rider here on the same afternoon, and maybe my news was no top-notch information to you, in the end I'm no longer asking you to inform me something you've got a mind to preserve to yourself, but I see you're in a few kind of trouble. Perhaps you're thinking it won't be too clean to get to the ferry without being caught. I used to be wondering so, stated Frodo. But we were given to try to get there, and it gained to be performed by means of sitting and wondering. So I am afraid we must be going. Thank you very an awful lot indeed in your kindness. I've been in terror of you and your dogs for over 30 years, Farmer Maggot, although you can giggle to hear it. It's a pity, for I've overlooked a great buddy. And now I'm sorry to go away so quickly. But I'll come. Returned, perhaps, in the future if I get a chance. You'll be welcome while you come, stated Maggot. However, now I've a belief. It's close to sunset already, and we're going to have our supper, for we often go to bed soon after the Sunday. In case you and Mr. Peregrine and all could stay and feature a bite with us, we'd be pleased. And so must we, said Frodo. But we ought to be going at once, I'm afraid. Even now it will likely be darkish earlier than we can reach the ferry. Ah, but wait a minute, I used to be going to say, after a bit of supper, I'll get out a small wagon, and I'll drive you all to the ferry. That will prevent an awesome step, and it might additionally save you problem of any other kind. Frodo now typical the invitation gratefully, to the relaxation of Pippin and Sam. The solar become already behind the western hills, and the mild changed into failing of Maggot's sons and his 3 daughters came in, and a generous supper was laid on the massive table. The kitchen changed into lit with candles and the re became mended. Mrs. Maggot bustled in and out. One or other hobbits belonging to the farm family came in. In a short even as 14 sat down to devour. There has been beer in plenty, and a robust dish of mushrooms and William Maxwell Aitken, except lots other strong farmhouse fare. The dogs lay by using the re and gnawed rinds and cracked bones. When they had nished, the farmer and his sons went out with a lantern and were given the wagon geared up. It turned into dark in the backyard, while the visitors got here out. They threw their packs on board and climbed in. The farmer sat within the using seat, and whipped up his stout ponies. His spouse stood in the mild of the open door. You be careful of yourself, Maggot. She known as Don't pass arguing with any foreigners, and come immediately lower back. I can, said he, and drove out of the gate. There has been now no breath of wind stirring, the night changed into still and quiet, and a relax become in the air. They went without lighting and took it slowly. After a mile or 2 the lane came to an quit, crossing a deep dike, and climbing a quick slope up onto the high-banked causeway. Maggot got down and took a great appearance either manner, north and south, but nothing might be seen inside the darkness, and there has been no longer a valid within the still air. Thin strands of river mist have been striking above the dikes, and crawling over the elds. It's going to be thick, said Maggot, but I'll not mild my lanterns until I flip for home. We'll hear anything on the street lengthy before we meet it this night. It changed into VE miles or greater from Maggot's lane to the ferry. They hobbits wrapped themselves up, however their ears had been strained for any sound above the creak of the wheels and the sluggish clop of the ponies' hoofs. The wagon regarded slower than a snail to Frodo. Beside him, Pippin was nodding toward sleep, however Sam was staring forwards into the rising fog. They reached the entrance to the ferry lane at closing. It turned into marked through two tall white posts that loomed up on their right. Farmer Maggot drew in his ponies and the wagon creaked to a halt. They have been simply beginning to scramble out, when abruptly they heard what they had all been dreading, hoofs on the road in advance. The sound became coming closer to them. Maggot jumped down and stood preserving the ponies' heads, and peering ahead into the gloom. Clip-clop came the upcoming rider. The fall of the hoofs sounded loud in the nevertheless foggy air. "You'd higher be hidden, Mr. Frodo," stated Sam anxiously. "You get down in the wagon and cowl up with blankets, and we'll send this rider to the right-abouts." He climbed out and went to the farmer's facet. Black riders could need to experience over him to get near the wagon. Clop clop, clop clop. The rider became nearly on them. "Hello there!" called Farmer Maggot. The advancing hoofs stopped. Brief. The idea they might dimly bet a darkish cloaked form in the mist, a backyard or two beforehand. "Now then," stated the farmer, throwing the reins to Sam and striding ahead. "Don't you come back a step closer. What do you need, and where are you going?" "I need Mr. Baggins. Have you ever visible him?" stated a muffled voice. However, the voice changed into the voice of Mary Brandybuck. A dark lantern became uncovered, and its mild fell on the astonished face of the farmer. "Mr. Mary!" he cried. "Yes, of Path. Who did you think it turned into?" stated Mary, coming ahead. As he got here out of the mist and their fears subsided, he seemed all at once to diminish to ordinary hobbit length. He was using a pony, and a headscarf became swathed spherical his neck and over his chin to maintain out the fog. Frodo sprang out of the wagon to greet him. "So there you are at remaining," stated Mary. "I used to be starting to marvel if you'll flip up at all nowadays, and I was simply going again to supper while it grew foggy. I got here throughout and rode up toward Stock to look in case you had fallen in any ditches. However, I'm blessed if I know which way you've got come. Wherein did you end them, Mr. Maggot? On your duck pond?" "No, I caught 'em trespassing," said the farmer, "and almost set my puppies on 'em. However, they'll tell you all of the tale, I've no question. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Mary and Mr. Frodo and all, I'd exceptional be turning for domestic. Mrs. Maggot will be worriting with the night getting thick." He backed the wagon into the lane and became it properly accurate night time to you all, he said. "It's been a queer day, and no mistake, but all properly as ends properly, although possibly we ought to not say that till we reach our own doors. I'll no longer deny that I'll be happy now once I do." He lit his lanterns, and were given up. All at once he produced a massive basket from beneath the seat. "I was nearly forgetting," he stated. Mrs. Maggot put this up for Mr. Baggins, together with her compliments. He passed it down and moved off, observed through a chorus of "thank you and exact nights." They watched the light earrings of light spherical his lanterns as they dwindled into the foggy night. Frodo laughed. From the included basket he held, the heady scent of mushrooms was growing.